All right, with me now to discuss all of the whirlwind of developments is Michael Fauntroy. He's an associate professor of policy and government, director of the Race, Politics and Policy Center at George Mason University. Good morning. So glad to have you with us. So this historic announcement by Biden, let's begin there. What was your reaction to it yesterday afternoon?
Well, shock, not by the decision, but by the timing. I didn't expect it at this point, and I think that's what got everybody into a bit of a frenzy. You know, early Sunday afternoon news drop like this is somewhat unusual, and so I think that sent everybody into a bit of a tizzy, if you will. You know, this is mid to late July. There are a bunch of people who are on vacation, and I think it just caught everybody off guard.
What do you think convinced the president finally to step aside?
I think ultimately it came down to polling. I know that there was a pressure campaign, and I was among those who thought that the president should step aside. But ultimately, the polling showed him not just losing, but beginning to lose ground. And at that point, I think he concluded that there was not an opportunity to turn it around and win. He didn't want to be responsible for not just losing the presidency, but perhaps losing the Senate and getting in the way of the Democrats' opportunity to retake the House of Representatives.
Do you think that his decision to bow out helps or hurts his legacy?
Oh, I think it helps his legacy. Had he stayed in and lost, he would have gone down in history as someone who hung on for personal reasons and lost a winnable election. Now he gets to go out and get his flowers, so to speak. He's going to be praised. We heard some of that in the piece so far. And I think that as we go forward, particularly at the convention, he is going to get a tremendous amount of love and support by people who appreciate what he's done and who he's been over the course of the last 50 plus years as an elected official.
Biden has endorsed Kamala. That came right after his announcement, a separate announcement to replace him. That would make her the first Black woman to be running for this position. Got to be honest, I don't really love asking you this question, but I feel it should be asked. How much of a factor is her race and her gender, Michael, for American voters?
Well, Marcia, you have asked the biggest question I think we've ever talked about in the time that we've been together here. I will just say a couple of things. First, a point of clarification. Shirley Chisholm, a New York Congresswoman, ran for the presidency in 1972, but Kamala Harris is the first one to get the nomination, or on the verge of getting the nomination. And I have to tell you, Marcia, it's uncomfortable for an additional reason. And that is, I remember the rank misogyny that torpedoed Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. And I'm concerned that Kamala Harris is certainly going to face some of that this go round. And you add to that the race. You add to that the daughter of an immigrant. You add to that the current tenor of our public discourse. I think we are on the doorstep of one of the ugliest campaigns in American presidential history. There have been people running against Kamala Harris for the last 4 years on the Republican side, the far right conservatives, because they anticipated or thought or believed that all of this was a conspiracy to put her in the first place. So they are ready to attack her. We've begun to see some of that already, and it's going to get very, very ugly in that regard going forward.
Michael, what will she look for in a running mate?
So all presidential nominees look for somebody who can balance and provide strengths where the nominee has weaknesses. So I would look for her to pick someone like a Roy Cooper, the current governor of North Carolina, known as a centrist. They go back. They were both attorneys general in their respective states some time ago. So you need someone you trust. You need somebody who brings some things that you don't have. Roy Cooper, Sherrod Brown, the current senator of Ohio, someone I think you need to look for. Both of those candidates can go into states in which she is currently trailing and potentially close the gap. So I think you want a balancing act: geography, ideology, gender, history, and all of those sorts of things that are part of the calculus.
And if she is the nominee and she does choose a running mate from one of those states that you just mentioned, do you think it brings, Michael, into play some states that may not have been, or perhaps pulls some states out?
Well, look, the map is now about to be reorganized almost regardless of who she picks. But if, for example, she were to pick Roy Cooper of North Carolina, I think that puts North Carolina in play. He has won statewide in that state on 4 different elections. And North Carolina is near Georgia. Georgia then gets a little energized. So I could see that happening for sure.
Michael Fauntroy is an associate professor of policy and government and the director of the Race Politics and Policy Center at George Mason University. Michael, as always, really appreciate speaking with you.